Yeah. Look, I get it. You're a paladin. You want to smite. I get it. But you do have some other spells. And, there are other things outside of combat and sometimes even in combat where other spells could be pretty useful. Oh, that does interest you? Well, then you're in luck. Because behind today's secret door, best Paladin Spells levels 1 through 5. So behind today's Secret Door, best Paladin Spells levels 1 through 5. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons & Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. Alright, I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, your help would be greatly appreciated and much needed. And many thanks to Marcelo and Doug for your support. The link will be in the pinned comment and in the description. Alright, so before we start with the list, let me just give you a little bit of criteria here. I am only counting spells for the Paladin that are included in the Player's Handbook. When we do get to the list, it'll be probably about 4 spells on average per level, and then it will decrease as we move up in levels because the spell list gets smaller and smaller. Now, in many cases, there will be a smite spell at that level that will be in that list. So I'm not going to numerically rate it. It will be the first that I will list, and then we'll go from bottom to the top as we go through the levels. And the reason for that, I think, is pretty simple. Most paladins are wanting to spend their spell slots on smite, and understandably so. The smite really went through a lot of consternation, including from me in this edition. But when you start looking at some of those higher level smites, and I'm not even talking about high level smites here, but just, as you move through the levels, there's some really good smites in there. So they took with one hand and gave back with the other. So does it come out about equal for the Paladin? I think the Paladin's probably strangely a little better off in a weird way than they were before. Now, if there's an honorable mention on that level, that will be listed first. The smite will then be listed because it's always going to be included. Although, again, it's not going to be rated as a number because I believe that you're just going to take the smite if it's a good one. By the time you get to 9th level, you're going to have access to 3rd level smites, and you're going to have 9 preparations in a day. And you're going to have many auto preparations, both from the class itself and through your subclass. So I don't believe that if you were to take a smite per level, that's just going to inordinately crimp your style. But my criteria, therefore, is going to be, I'm not going to put a lot of emphasis on combat spells unless it's something that I find to be potentially really good in combat. And because you're going to be probably using those slots for smite in combat. The whole idea here, the mechanical advantage that the Paladin does have, is that they don't have to prepare a whole bunch of combat preparations. And they shouldn't. They have the smite. That's what they're probably going to use. So having utility in that spell list is going to be very important because the Paladin gets that luxury of their primary things are going to be about, a handful of spells, and all the rest could be for a what-if scenario. And that is, in my opinion, how you should look at your spell preparation as a Paladin. That being said, of course, there's going to be the odd combat spell in the list. All right, so let's get started here at level 1. For the honorable mention, I'm going to list Compelled Duel. Now, I'm not a big fan of this spell myself because I feel that from the way I play positionally and the way I roleplay during combat, I'm going to probably achieve the bulk of what Compelled Duel does just by how I play. And I'm not talking about anything overtly spectacular here. I'm just saying if you play good positionally, you probably don't need a lot of what Compelled Duel has to offer. Now, having said all of that, the reason why it's an honorable mention is that it can be really creatively used in certain situations. And so any spell that has that kind of creativity as a way of crippling an encounter in the right circumstance, those kind of things, then that's worth a look. The two problems I have with Compelled Duel is that they get a saving throw, so it's a save or suck, but the suck isn't really all that sucky. They get to have, they're having disadvantage imposed on them if they attack anybody else other than you, and they can't move willingly further away from you than 30 feet. Now, the advantage thing could easily be solved if they were able to find, if they have any other way of creating advantage, then they're just attacking something else at even. So it's still a debuff because they could have been doing it with advantage to that target, but it's just not quite crippling enough for me to look at a spell slot and then have be a save or suck when the suck isn't all that bad. Now, the movement thing can be interesting, and that's where I'm talking about the creativity. So there are going to be circumstances where just that could be used compellingly well. But the other problem I have is that the spell ends when one of the best things you can do in Dungeons & Dragons is done to the target, which is focus fire. If anybody else hits the target, the spell ends. So that makes it even more niche, in my opinion. But every table runs differently, every DM runs differently. It's definitely worth a look, but I'm not saying that it's one of the best. Now, for the smite at this level, there are several smites listed. The one that I like best, the one I think that you should be preparing, is Wrathful Smite. So it gets a saving throw if the target gets a saving throw, but if they fail that saving throw, they have the Frightened condition. Now, why that matters to me so much is that Frightened, of course, is a crippling condition. They get disadvantage, blah, 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 blah. But the biggest thing about the Frightened condition is that they cannot willingly move closer to you. So if you have a weapon mastery or any other thing that allows you to have a push effect, and there are so many of those running around in the game right now, or you have another compatriot that has a push effect, then while a creature is afraid and they get pushed, if that target doesn't have a ranged option, or at least, let's say, a good ranged option, or reach, then that target is essentially out of combat for as long as they are frightened. Now, they're going to get repeated saving throws, but even one round where you can take in a target and with that push effect keep them out of the combat is incredibly good. And the damage that Wrathful Smite does is it's a slight tick under what you would get from Divine Smite. So you're taking a little bit of a haircut there, but you also have the effect of having an absolutely potentially crippling kind of scenario. Now, if you don't have a push effect, it's still a very good effect for Frightened. So Wrathful Smite would be my pick for the non-Divine Smite of this level. And then coming in at number 3, we have Detect Magic. Detect Magic is a spell that in Dungeons & Dragons, you almost can't play without it. So if you have it on your list, it is definitely worth your while to take that spell. Then at number 2, we have Cure Wounds. I realize that you do have Lay on Hands, but that can only go so far. So having the option of being able to pick somebody up or heal is going to be good. You're a paladin, you're the good person in the party, always thinking of others. So I think you have to take Cure. You're going to see not a ton of healing spells listed on this list, but the good ones I will list. Then finally at number 1, we get Bless. Not a big surprise. Bless is an amazing spell, and I've been doing some thinking here about Bless recently. And while you gain an average of 12.5%, and I'm talking about attack rolls here, there's an interesting way of looking at Bless, because that 12.5% doesn't really tell the whole story. A target generally has about a 60% chance of hitting if they're at the curve. So a player character has about 60% chance to hit without advantage. Now, there's plenty of ways to get advantage in here, but this is still going to stack with your advantage. But it particularly shines on characters that are fighting without advantage. So if you instead look at the total damage potential pool, and by that I mean what is the average number of, depending on how many attacks the creature's going to get, their average hit is what you would look at, and then the total of that would be their total pool. A character without advantage who is fighting at the curve gets 60% of that pool, and then a little bit more from critical hits. That's how DPR is figured. So if you think about it, Bless is like 12.5% of that pool. You, as a character, are only dealing 60% of that pool, normally speaking. So that 12.5% isn't just a 12.5% increase. That 12.5% is a little bit better than a 20% increase. 12.5 is a little bit better than a fifth of a 60% chance to hit. So the damage that you normally do is augmented by nearly 20%. But whether you want to look at it from that point of view or you just want to look at it in terms of the total damage pool. So if you're saying a 15-point damage pool at lower levels is what their potential is, then a 12.5% is a significant, at that kind of level, is a significant bonus. And you're doing that 3 times. So if we go back to the 20% idea here, folks, if you are, as a character, are doing average damage, and you're augmenting 3 other characters by 20%, 3 times, then by simple math, you're doing 60% over average damage. And that is generally what is considered to be great damage. Now, that's always going to be a little bit different because the barbarian's going to have reckless attack. They're attacking everything with advantage all the time. So if you gave them Bless, it's a little bit less meaningful, but their pool is also generally a little bit bigger. So it's very difficult to put an exact number on what Bless is worth, but it's worth a little bit more than we think it is. And this is just on offense. You get the D4 on saving throws, too. So I'm sure I don't have to go on and on about Bless. There is one problem as a paladin, though. It's concentration, and that's strangely a problem for some of the better smite spells. Some of them require concentration for their effect to continue. That's a bit of a problem. So concentration, and it's taking an action. Now, if you're a martial character, your action is everything. That's your attack. So Bless is going to definitely be best used in dungeon scenarios where you're about to open the door and you're pretty darn sure there's something behind that door. Then blind Bless before initiative is rolled and walk in. That's going to be the most efficient way to do it. You are taking a chance, of course. But all that being said, it does have the greatest potential of any of these spells. Bless is just a tremendous spell. One last point about Bless. As you advance through levels, if you had a cleric in your party or any other character that had Bless, that's a full spellcaster, their concentration is not going to be going to Bless as they advance through levels. Most likely, in most cases, they're going to have bigger spells. But Bless packs a really hard punch, and it scales beautifully because the numbers just keep getting bigger of what that damage pool is. Once you start talking about a 40-point damage pool that's possible, 12.5% of that starts becoming real numbers. And 40-point damage pools are not all that unheard of, and they're not really all that greatly big. So it's going to always pack that punch. So the paladin has the option of being able to cast that if they don't have another concentration spell that they expect to be running. So it will be able to have it be a primary option for their concentration slots at later levels, with the caveat, of course, that you are giving up that action. So there is that problem. And the best oath spell for this level goes to Vengeance, and they get Hunter's Mark. Now, you're a martial character. You want to do damage. Hunter's Mark will do that for you. It is concentration, of course, as we all know. And at level 2, for our Smite spell, I'm going to select Shining Smite. Now, Shining Smite definitely takes a much bigger haircut here. It's only doing 2d6 of damage for a second level spell slot. If you were to use Divine Smite, you would get 3d8. But if you hit somebody, and of course that's when the smite would go off, is when you hit them, that's the point about these smites, is that they don't require attack rolls. So they are automatically hitting, even though they're being treated as if they required an attack roll. You're casting it after the fact of a hit. So the paladin gets tremendous efficiency with these. But it is only 2d6 at this level, but they erupt in light, and any attack against that target has advantage until the spell ends. Now, folks, no saving throw. So would you like to have a single target spell that's Fairy Fire without a saving throw and that automatically hits? Now, granted, you don't know exactly when that hit's going to come, but it doesn't require an attack roll and it doesn't require a saving throw. That's a powerful spell. Is it going to be your go-to spell? No, it shouldn't be. But to use it once in a combat, and it is concentration, is definitely going to be worth considering. So with these smites, am I going to suggest that you take one for every level? If you like them, you should have enough preparations to make it work. Do you always want to use them? No. I think that you use them situationally. But this is the best of the bunch, in my opinion. Shining Smite. And remember, advantage is damage. And it's not just damage from you now. You're talking about 25% of your damage pool, as I was talking about. Now it's 25% of everybody else's damage pool that's hitting that target. Great spell. Great. And coming in at number 3, I have Prayer of Healing. Prayer of Healing provides a little bit of healing. It's a 10-minute cast time. This is a somewhat situational spell, though. The reason why is because in addition to that healing, it provides the effect of a short rest. Now, a short rest in 10 minutes is great. If you have a DM that's got you in a situation where they're just not going to allow you to short rest whenever you feel like it, maybe you've got urgency going on in the situation, but maybe 10 minutes would be doable. I mean, 10 minutes is often what it takes to search a room in a dungeon. So if you've got that kind of time, you could be casting Prayer of Healing and give everybody the effect of a short rest. So if you've got a warlock in the party, they're going to love you. You got a battle master in the party, they're going to love you. You got a monk in the party, they're going to love you. This is a 2nd level spell, so you're a 5th level paladin. Do you have a bard in the party? They're going to love you. Just about everybody gets something out of a short rest, but those kinds of classes really reap an enormous amount of benefit from those rests. So somewhat situational, but definitely worth putting on your list, or your list of what you would like to put on your list. So coming in at number 3 here at 2nd level, I have Locate Object. Now, Locate Object is a great utility spell. You need to find something. Oh my gosh, where could this thing be? Am I getting close? That's what Locate Object does. Now, that may sound situational, but it's a situation that happens, do you need to look for stuff in Dungeons & Dragons? Yeah. All the time. You're looking for that hidden thing, or the thing that the guy's got that is running away, or whatever. Locate Object is a big, big help. And at number 1, we have Aid. I don't think I really need to go on and on about Aid here, but the ability to pick up 3 targets, especially in lower levels where those kinds of drops could happen. And it's a buff that will stack with temporary hit points. So just yada, da, 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 da. Yeah, Aid is a great, great spell. Aid at number 1. So for our best Oath spell, we have a tie, and it's the same spell, but we have 2 different oaths that get it. Vengeance and Ancients both get Misty Step. Now, Misty Step I have talked about as a great spell. I'm not poo-pooing it at all, but it is a touch overrated by a lot of players. They think it's always great for everybody to have Misty Step all the time. In my opinion, the more offensive your character is, and the more durable your character is, the better Misty Step is. For other characters, it's going to be often just a repositioning out of a positional error problem, or just a defensive jump backwards, or it could be utility. Everybody's going to find use for Misty Step in utility, obviously. But if you are a character that wants to get to high-value targets and can take hits on your way to get there, or once you get there to be swarmed and be able to stand up and deal with it, then Misty Step becomes a really valuable spell. Great spell. And the Paladin can do all of those things. And here at level 3 for our Smite spell, we're going to have Blinding Smite. Now, Blinding Smite doesn't take quite the haircut that Shining Smite did. It's doing 3d8, so you're losing a d8 out of what you would get out of Divine Smite. But once again, is it worth it? Yes, and here's why. It's a minute in duration without concentration. And if you hit them without a saving throw, they are blinded. They do get saves at the end of every one of their turns, but they are blinded for at least that round. Blinded does an enormous amount of things aside from you having advantage and them having disadvantage. That reciprocity of buff to debuff is amazingly powerful, but they can't target things that they can't see. Meaning specifically, if they don't have blind sense or blind sight or whatever, they can't cast spells on things that they can't see. They can't target things with ranged attacks that they can't see. Whatever the case, it can be an enormously debilitating effect, and they don't get a save, and it doesn't have concentration. And the damage, would you give up 4.5 points of damage plus the crit to have that kind of an effect? Because that's what we're talking about here. And I would say, yeah. Now, for the number 3 position here at 3rd level, I have Crusader's Mantle. I'm very torn about this pick. Crusader's Mantle provides an enormous area of effect. It's a 30-foot radius. That's enormous. And creatures that you choose get an extra d4 on their melee attacks. So the problem with Crusader's Mantle, though, is that it takes an action to cast. So it's in the same problem that Bless has. Now, by the time you get this, you're a 9th level Paladin. That means that your damage pool is going to be crazy high. I'm not even talking about your damage pool at this point. I'm talking about what your DPR is. Let's say it's 35. That's a really conservative number for a Paladin at 9th level. Let's say it's 35. Crusader's Mantle is giving out D4s. Now, it's for every attack, but there better be an awful lot of D4s. And in most cases, you're not going to make that up till the earliest until round 2 because of the loss of your DPR in round 1. But that does mean that in rounds 3 and 4, you're going to be doing quite a bit of damage, but you're breaking even at round 2. It's really close, and it depends on the situation. Do you have a big party? There's one. Do you have a monk in your party that's doing 4 attacks? A dual wielder that's doing 4 attacks? Those help a lot in that assessment of Crusader's Mantle. Do you have a polearm master who's doing 3 attacks? Those kinds of things are going to all figure in to how valuable Crusader's Mantle is. And one final thing. You are going to be in situations from time to time, especially as a paladin, especially at 9th level, where you're going to make allies with people in a very short-term scenario, possibly, and they are going to fight with you to fight somebody else. In situations like that, where you have more numbers on your side, you can make that an overwhelming advantage with Crusader's Mantle. So, situational, to be sure, but that's the beauty of the Paladin spell list. You've got your smites. Some of them have some control and debuff effects. You've got your damage. You've got a little bit of control and all that. Now, what else can you grab? This isn't utility, but it could be an en masse devastation in the right situation. And at number 2, here at 3rd level, I have Dispel Magic. Now, I've referred to Dispel Magic as counter spell after the fact. It's not quite that good, but if you need Dispel Magic, you really probably need it. It's a great spell. It's always going to be, you're always going to feel a little bit better that you've got that sitting in your pocket if you need it. So yeah, Dispel Magic, number 2. And at number 1, we have another spell that I feel is pretty much a must-take if it's on your spell list, and that's Revivify. Nobody likes being down and out for the rest of the night. So if you can pick somebody up after a combat that is dead, and you're a paladin, I think you have to take that spell. Call me crazy, but I think Revivify is incredibly important to take. So yeah, number 1, Revivify. And that brings us to the Oath spell, and this one I'm very torn with as well, because I'm not a huge fan of this spell, but in the hands of a paladin, it does change slightly, and it could be other martial characters that changes slightly. And that spell is Haste. Now, both Glory and Vengeance get it, so again, it's a tie, but Haste is a spell that requires an action to cast. It's concentration, but it is giving you an action back, and that action can be one attack, one singular attack. It can be dash, disengage, utilize. There's all that stuff. Your movement rate goes up. You get +2 to your armor class, dexterity saving throws, blah, 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 blah. It's got a bunch of good stuff in it. But the big thing for a martial character is always that action to the attack. you're down 1 in round 1. In round 2, you recover that 1. So you're dead even in round 2, and then you're getting 1 extra 1 in rounds 3 and 4, if we're talking about an average of 4 rounds in combat. So you're netting 2 attacks, plus all the other stuff. So I just don't really have a lot of use for haste, generally speaking. I never recommend it. It used to be one of the best spells in the game, and now it's okay. But in the hands of a 9th, remember, you're 9th level when you have access to this, the chances that you have a really good magic weapon is highly likely. If you don't have a really good magic weapon as a paladin by 9th level, I would really be mad at my DM. So you probably have a great one. And those 2 attacks with a really great magic weapon have to be considered. So I'm not overwhelmingly saying, yeah, you get haste, you should be casting it all the time. Not necessarily, but if you have it and you're in that kind of a situation and you've got a great magic weapon, then haste is really going to bring a lot of hurt. So yeah, strangely enough for me, not a fan of haste, but it is haste here. And finally, here at 4th level, the list is very small. Now, there is one smite spell, Staggering Smite. If you want it, you can take it. I'm not a real big fan. This does have a saving throw. Yeah, I mean, and you're taking, for this level of smite, you're doing 46 extra. It's psychic damage. That's good. But that's a pretty big difference from 5d8. I mean, it's a significant difference, especially if you then start talking about crits, that gulf starts becoming pretty substantial. Now, you're also a 13th level character by the time you've got a 4th level spell like this. So it doesn't really do that much for me. The previous smites, the ones that I noted, I think are really, really great. And this one, not so much. So I'm not going to really talk about it as something I'm going to highly recommend. But the spell that I would pick, and I'm only going to pick one for this level, is Banishment. Banishment is a spell that I generally don't recommend Banishment. It's because I rate it not badly. I just rate it a bit lower. So if this were like a classic grading scale, now I'm not talking about like S tier and all that. I'm talking about a classic grading scale. And most of my recommendations, I would give something like an 85 to a 92 or something. I'm a pretty hard grader. So we're talking about a solid B that you earned in that class as a spell. I'm going to give something like Banishment a 79. So a solid C plus, depending on the teacher, a B minus. I might even call it a B minus. Maybe an 80. We could give it an 80. Yeah, that maybe an 80 is a bit more fair now that I've said it out loud. So maybe an 80. So it just misses out, is my point on my recommendations. But it's on your list and it's the best control spell, kind of control spell that you've got. So Banishment, absolutely take Banishment. Now for the Oath spell, there's not even a contest here. It's Vengeance gets it again with Dimension Door. Now, Dimension Door isn't just a great utility spell. It's an amazing combat get out of jail free card. Like, you need to get out of this combat. Maybe you got surprised in combat. Maybe everything went horribly, horribly wrong. Now, it's not very paladin-like to retreat in a typical, like, I'm the great hero kind of sense. But even great heroes know when they're outmatched. And it's not just you that's running away. You can grab a friend and take them through the Dimension Door. Now, some people may not find that happens very often, and it probably doesn't happen all that often. I need to bail on this combat. I think that there's a lot of value in gameplay of having that, and the willingness to retreat is incredibly important for a game master to get that across to players. This isn't a movie. It's not a script. You're not protected by the plot necessarily. You should be expected to retreat from time to time. And Dimension Door is one of the great get out of that bad scenario kind of spells. And then, of course, it's just got enormous utility. And again, it's not just you, it's you and a friend. So yeah, Dimension Door. If not, You could argue that it's the best spell in the game at this level, particularly when you're getting it at 13th level, because what is generally considered to be the best 4th level spell is Polymorph, and it, by this level, Polymorph has kind of outlived its usefulness. It's certainly its glory days are certainly behind it. It's still a good spell. But Dimension Door is still holding the same value that it had then when you got it at 7th level. So I'm going to say Dimension Door could make the argument for the greatest 4th level spell in the game. Not saying it is, but it's definitely in the top 2 or top 3. And that brings us to number 5. And again, I just only have the one on the list. The Smite does not impress me at this level here at all. At all. That spell is Destructive Wave. Now, you're a 17th level Paladin by the time you had the spell, which is one of the reasons I don't like the Smite. It's so stupidly configured for this level, I don't even know what to say. But Destructive Wave does give you mass damage, and you don't have mass damage effects. So for that reason alone, I'm taking Destructive Wave. But like I said, folks, the full casters at 17th level, they're getting 9th level spells by this point. You're probably just going to be upcasting the Smite that you like best here at 5th level. But if you need Destructive Wave, I would have it on my list because it's just, it's going to do a lot of area of effect damage if that's what you need. All right. Well, that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.